It is 5:59.
Almost.
First grade teacher said he's never, or she's never met.
I'm starting at 6 because hockey's around the corner,
She's never met a 6-year-old who's actually started.
and we have one guest.
To my phone.
Good evening and welcome to the November 14th, 2024 City Council Work Session. I'm calling this meeting to order. It is 6 p.m. Thank you for joining us. The invocation will be led by our City Manager, Felicia Donnelly, followed by our Pledge Allegiance. Please rise.
Heavenly Father, help us to carry out the tasks necessary for us to fulfill our purpose. Help us stay on track so that we may let this meeting work for our good and for the good of the community. Help us to be good stewards of positive change to benefit the city of Oldsmar and its residents. And this we pray, amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Felicia, for that prayer. And our next item on our agenda is the open forum. Each speaker will be recognized once and will be limited to a 5-minute comment on any subject. If you have filled out a speaker card, please hand it to the city clerk. Filling out a speaker card is not mandatory, and you will still be given an opportunity to speak when speaking. Please state your name and address for the record. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to the council? Okay, with that, I'm going to close the open forum. And we are going to move right along, and the city manager, Felicia Donnelly, will introduce the item.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. This work session is to discuss a special event fee waiver application criteria and process. I would like to invite Chip Potts, the Director of Parks and Recreation, up to the lectern to assist you all in a presentation and some points of decision.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you, Felicia. Chip Potts, Director of Parks and Recreation. And I'm here tonight to work with you to develop a criteria for the special event fee waiver process. Tonight, what I'd like to do is I'm going to provide you with some background on our current process, what other cities are doing. We're going to talk about a list of the waivers that were granted in fiscal year 2024. And then I'm looking to receive guidance from you all on your recommendations to form a policy. So that's where we're going to go through the process here. So let me see here. Got my clicker. Okay. So the special event fee waivers. Okay. Parks and Recreation works with a number of co-sponsored event organizers throughout the year to offer events. These events often supplement the events that are offered by city staff. These events are run by both private organizations and nonprofit organizations. In our process, the nonprofits are able to request fee waivers to offset their costs. However, this is not available to private or for-profit groups. Fees considered for waiver include event fees, staffing, and permitting. And our fees vary based on event duration, size, and use. After receiving an application, city staff reviews the event request internally along with the event organizers. It includes representatives from various departments along with Pinellas County Sheriff's Department. Any qualifying event requesting a fee waiver is then placed on a city council agenda for review and approval or denial. Now, as a reminder, city council only approves event waivers, not the event itself. All right. So, special event fee waivers. Currently, there's no designated criteria to evaluate the fee waiver requests that come in.
Chip, did you put yourself in the picture?
I was gonna. No, that's not me. I'm just saying and we have a lot of great events, special events around the city. I don't know who that handsome guy up in the upper right-hand corner is, but
Forgive me for
apparently he
interrupting.
came
I just
in
want to
first
make sure.
place.
Now we have your
What I-
badge number. We can see
Yeah.
how fast you were.
Apparently he came in first place in his age category design. But anyway, the goal of this meeting is to develop a standard criteria to assist City Council in the evaluation process. So to assist in the process, staff researched other local municipalities to review how special event fee waivers were considered. We looked at Largo, Dunedin, Tarpon Springs, Clearwater, and Safety Harbor. And what did we find? Well, all of them did provide some type of fee waiver assistance for nonprofit events. However, there was not a lot of commonality in what was waived or how much was waived or the process in which they did it. It seems like everybody has their own individual process, which is kind of standard when you look at other agencies around the city, around the county, and how they operate. However, all did require the organizer to be a nonprofit or a civic organization, and private events were not eligible for fee waiver. So, I'm going to skip to my screen here. Okay, so from the surrounding cities in this chart, you see Oldsmar, Largo, Dunedin, Tarpon Springs, Clearwater, and Safety Harbor. The first two lines, the status and whether they were public or private events, are all common. All of them were either a nonprofit or a civic organization, or they were open to the general public. That's what that public-private kind of means. That they were all open to the general public. It gets kind of a little different here when we get what was eligible for a fee waiver. Here in Oldsmar, you guys consider all fees waivable except for utilities. Okay, so water, electric. The event organizer is always responsible for those in Oldsmar. In Largo, they waived all fees except for their staffing, any permit fees, licenses, or inspections. Dunedin was a little bit different. They had a flat fee of $150, which they call a license fee, and then they would waive all event fees. Okay, now they are in the process. After talking to them, they're reevaluating that. They're looking at raising that fee. Okay, but it has not passed yet. They haven't presented it to their commission. Tarpon Springs, they didn't have any fee waivers, but the event fee was only $50, and they had a $100 deposit. So that was kind of odd. So we have special event fees that range for the sizes and the duration of the event. Tarpon Springs doesn't have that, but they did charge for any staff time or utilities if they were necessary. Clearwater, bigger city, a little bit different. They had one. They have two categories. One that was greater than 5,000 attendees, which they supported the entire event. There was only one event that they do that for per year, and that was it. And that was just because they host large events, right? And then they had a second category, which was less than 5,000 attendees per year, and they did that 4 times per year. But they actually provided $20,000 in support they gave $20,000 to the organizations that then they would be able to use for their expenses, which then they could actually pay back for whether it's police time or staff time or whatever. But if they didn't need that, then they could use the $20,000 for other expenses. And then Clearwater also provided in-kind stuff like equipment, signs, barricades, things like that. That was kind of how they handled their special event waivers. And then Safety Harbor, which was kind of unique out of all of the ones that have been previously listed. Safety Harbor nonprofits, they can request a full fee waiver, and those go to council, their commission once a year, which puts a lot of stress on getting all of those applications in at one time to review, but nonetheless, they do those all at one time. And then as we look down here for the requirements, and I kind of left that to the last part of the presentation on this slide here, is that the reports. Different reports are required by different agencies. Some require none, some require extensive, some are in the middle. For Oldsmar, we request that, or they may be asked to demonstrate how the funds will be used for an event and how it benefits the residents, but outside of that, we don't require any post-event reports. Largo, they didn't require a pre-event report or a post-event report. They just kind of had that agreement with the group. They come in, they do their event, and that's what it was. Dunedin, just general feedback. It was a conversation. They don't have anything written. It's just, hey, how did the event go? Did you have any issues? It's kind of like a post-meeting summary or a meeting with the organizer. Tarpon Springs, they had a piece of paper or a piece of paper in their application. that just said, what was the number of vendors, how many people attended, and how would your proceeds be used. That was an after-the-fact portion of that application. Clearwater had a short survey that they did online, again, similar to Tarpon Springs. How many vendors were there? What were the number of attendees? And did you have any concerns or any changes for the next time the event was run? Safety Harbor, again, they're different than the other ones. Before the event was approved for waiver, they went by commission. The event organizer had to provide a balance sheet and tax information that showed their nonprofit status with either the state or the federal government. They had to provide an event budget for that year. What were their anticipated revenues and expenses? If it was a reoccurring event, they had to provide the prior year financial report for the event. And then they had to provide the information on what they plan to do with the proceeds from the event. So you can see there's some commonality, there's some random non-commonality in there. So again, everybody treats it differently, and I think it just depends on the Commissioner Council and how they want to approach that. And I can leave that slide up if you want to look at it for a little bit longer, or I can move on.
You can move on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So why fee waivers, right? So fee waivers for the nonprofits to host events in Oldsmar, it gives us an opportunity to host a more unique variety of specialized events for our residents to attend. It brings in visitors from out of town. It doesn't overextend our staff. It takes a lot of work to put on our Winter Wonderlands, our Halloween events, and our other events. And for us to, and that's kind of, if you remember when the Chamber took over Celebrate Oldsmar, those events like that are very taxing on our staff and our resources, financially as well. This also provides an opportunity for nonprofits to give back to the community through fundraising opportunities. And as I kind of mentioned, the city doesn't incur the cost of planning, procuring, and executing the events. So in our current scenario, with our fee waivers, the city absorbs staffing costs, if there are any. Sometimes there are, sometimes there are not. Larger events possibly have staff for emergency management services, road closures for our parades, or an on-site attendant depending on the size and complexity of the event. One other thing is that we don't receive the full event fee when we do those waivers, but again, it's offset by not putting city staff out into the field and doing those events. Okay, so here's a list of the events that were waived in fiscal year '24. I counted these before. I think there's like 9, 11. So these are the ones that we had, that the council actually had waived fees for upon request and review. So we had the Rod Run, Celebrate Oldsmar, Craft Beer Festival, some performances by Oldsmar Friends of the Arts, the Mardi Gras fundraiser for Oldsmar Friends of the Arts, a couple of runs through the Rotary Club and Oldsmar Cares, and then, of course, we had the Oldsmar Days and Nights that goes along with Celebrate Oldsmar. So those are the events that were waived in 2024, fiscal year 2024. Any questions on that, or would you like me to continue? Continue? Okay.
No.
So what we're kind of looking for here is some direction on special event fee waiver consideration. Kind of find out what kind of criteria does the council want to create to consider these special events, and at what level? Some of the things that we looked at here, are they nonprofit? Are they city-based nonprofit, or are they non-city-based nonprofit? The event should be open to the general public. Is that a criteria point? The applicant making the request should be the primary event host or organizer. Do we require pre-event or post-event reports? Are there certain fees or a percentage of fees that you would like to consider? I'm not saying, I'm just giving an example, like if it's a Oldsmar-based nonprofit, would you consider a full fee waiver? And if it's a non-Oldsmar-based nonprofit, would you consider a partial fee waiver? We don't have anything like that right now. Other considerations, are there positive economic benefits to the city, or does it support the city's strategic vision? Are there defined benefits to the residents of Oldsmar through the uniqueness of the events, our dog events, our craft beer festival, the performances that we have? Should the event not be politically motivated? Are there other criteria that's out there that maybe I haven't thought about, or research that maybe you guys have thought about? So What we'd like to find out here for the next steps is to discuss and develop an evaluation criteria. And once we develop that criteria, staff will bring that evaluation policy to the council for adoption. If you have any questions about the presentation or my research, I'll try to answer those for you. Otherwise, if we want to have a discussion on the fees and the waivers or how you want to consider those, I'm here for whatever I can do for you.
Do you want to go back to that slide that you,
Prompts.
with all the cities?
Here we are.
You're talking about different.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I'm on
Yeah,
the, I'm doing it on my laptop.
And then,
isn't it?
no, if you could do that, and then, yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to go back there, and then, and go ahead, he's got questions, yes.
Okay.
Well, if you wanted, if you had something there, go ahead. You can lead off.
Oh, okay. I want to just share with you guys that I actually really like how Safety Harbor does it with the actual financial part about that. I actually like that. I wanted just to share that, that's all. But no, Andrew, if you wanted to say
Which
something.
part, no, which part of it?
The balance sheet and tax info for the
Financial stuff.
nonprofit status, the event budget, prior year financial report. And I like the idea especially of where the plans for the event proceeds are gonna be going.
Okay,
I like that.
so that's the report part of it. I guess mine, and forgive me, Councilmember Knapp,
Okay.
if you want to go.
No.
Because what I saw, what I took from Dunedin was the license fee.
So their
So I
license fee isn't
actually
a,
liked
sorry.
keeping- Forgive me, Chip. Having something like that where it's just like, you're gonna have to pay this, we can waive the rest of it, but we still have a license fee. That's all I wanted to say. I agree with you, Mayor.
Yeah.
I do like
No,
what
I
Sa-
didn't look at it that way either. I agree with you.
But I do like what Safety Harbor does here. I still want the reports. And for us, I guess going forward, they would be past reports. I guess the pre-report would be the past report, if you will, right? So they're coming to us next year. And they're saying, hey, this is what we did last year. And they would do that in perpetuity. We'd say, okay, hey, we can waive all of this stuff, but we still need something. I guess it is my point. I still want all the reports, as you guys know. I always want the information. Now give it to me. I love reading it, right? I'm just like a nerd, right? I'm just reading it all. It's just like, okay, what did we do here, and here? But if it's not worth our while, I think the reports would show it. Yes, it's worth our while, but we also just can't say, everything's fine, it's a nonprofit event, so we're just gonna waive everything. You still need something, you still have to give us something, is all I was saying. Forgive me.
I like it. No, you did great. Councilmember Knapp, go
Yeah,
ahead.
sure. So I do also appreciate the preference or the proposal to consider some financial, backing or evidence to show what's going on, because it's easy, not, by no means is this an allegation of anybody has done this, but what prevents somebody as an applicant, probably less likely a nonprofit versus a civic organization that says, well, we're gonna give money to an organization, but then nothing happens, either maybe through no fault of their own, they don't get enough people at their event, or they do get a whole bunch of people and then they don't cut a check to who they said they were going to, so
Right.
that wouldn't be great. It's like, well, yeah, we waive fees for you, and then who you were trying to benefit didn't get benefited, so I do like that to kind of, I think there would be certain extenuating circumstances where if it's a relatively new organization, they may not be able to show much in terms of financial backing, but then that may give us pause to say, well, hey, year one, you gotta show that you really mean this before we're considering to waive those fees in the future. And then also the license fee or something flat, to try to simplify it, I think is great too. Because obviously, when you look at our fee worksheet, it's, it's a one pager, but there's a lot of things to kind of check off and consider. This might be, well, Chip, if you know the answer, that's fine, and perhaps Felicia could, if not. As it relates to when city staff, whether it be, your staff, like Parks and Rec staff, or EMT Fire Rescue, are those people that are working outside of their normal hours, essentially possibly overtime, basically especially for fire, are they're dedicated to the event versus if something goes down, they're zipping out of there?
Yes, they are dedicated to the event. So for example, Oldsmar Days and Nights, the parade, our public works staff is they're at overtime. We have a staff person who works the 3 days in the park during that entire event at overtime. And then if EMS is there, they are there as well.
Okay, so that's basically additional costs that the city is incurring for these events on top of paying whoever's on call, either through your teams or over at the fire station. Okay, good. Yeah, because I mean, that's obviously something, to be concerned about to an extent. Granted, none of these events go for days, or weeks on end, and just ballooning additional costs that we're frankly probably not budgeting for. So that is of interest. And then I think just another thing that wasn't so much touched on the slide, it's a little bit related to the primary event organizer type thing. I know this wasn't a city-approved event when we had the fiasco at the flea market, right? But what's to prevent something from being presented in such a fashion, but then turns out to not be that? And I know that's part of why we don't review the marketing, but giving a little bit more background, especially if there's not something that's easily accessible for us out in the public realm, whether it be a website or whatever, or for us to better understand, hey, this is a legit looking event and we're excited about having it here. It's like, we want to protect that so that we don't wind up having a scenario like that go down again.
And just to clarify as well, is this special event fee waiver would be for events held in our city parks, not on
Sure.
private
No,
properties
yeah,
as
I
well.
understand that,
Yeah.
but what's to stop
Correct.
someone from naming it something that sounds harmless?
Right.
And they are a charitable organization, but then it turns out to be something that we don't really want in our
Right.
city.
Right.
That's probably one of the more difficult challenges in terms of being able to filter those things out and consider what events we're excited to have or not. And granted, part of this is really just about the fee waiver, right? To say, well, the fees are the fees, and they still may be able to have the event. I think there's some
But
challenges
Andrew, I
there.
think to your point, if we mitigate the cost for when we have longer events and we have staff time, where they're working overtime, and we do have a blanket fee for the license fee of $150, which I'm actually fine with that number. If you guys want a different number, that's fine. But if we collect that for each event, then that does mitigate some of the costs, correct, of staff time? Would it,
The 150?
I mean, but each event, so it's 150, we're having the rod run, it's a one-day thing, there's one person there, but we're collecting it for each event, so it does sort of offset what we're doing globally. Is that correct, or am I getting that completely wrong?
We would collect 150 for each event. Not each event has a staff person associated with it. And
Right.
depending on the level of the event would dictate who would have to be there
Which
for
is,
that
yeah,
event.
which is my point, so that would mitigate the cost when we would need to have staff there, correct? Do you guys see what I'm saying?
Well, the overall
Yeah.
expense picture, yeah.
We're getting a
Right.
little bit more revenue coming in, even though we have to, we would still be pushing the same money out to pay the staff. We would at least have some
Right.
coming back if we had the blanket license fee.
But for the longer weekend events, it's gonna cost more for our staff than $150,
Oh, yeah.
correct?
That's correct.
Well over. If you
Still-
want to go back to the the numbers, that would be,
Yeah.
I think, helpful, Chip. if
But
you-
Mayor,
if
that's
you
my
go there.
point, is that it would cost more for those longer events, but we would collect it for each event.
So you
So
almost
when,
like
so
profit
we're
off
still,
of them.
we're still paying that, and we wouldn't want to profit. I
Well,
mean,
I
even
just
if-
mean, you
even
know what
if
I'm
we broke
saying,
even,
it
right.
like,
So when the longer events, when we have to spend that money, there are events where we still collect the license fee, the license fee amount, right? But we wouldn't have staff, we wouldn't have any money getting spent out from the city. Does that make sense?
Yep, makes sense,
Which
yeah.
is exactly what we're doing right now, but we're not getting anything back in terms of a license fee, is my point.
Yeah. Another thing, just, and this is not singling out any of these organizations, but many of these are ones that also apply for our charitable giving that we budget for on a yearly basis.
Good
So
point.
in essence, we are giving, or just not taking from them by certain amounts when they have these events. So it's kind of a wash, right? You say, well, okay, if you just ask for more and then we're going to charge you a fee, it's not really accomplishing much, right? It's the
Right.
same outcome for these organizations. So I don't, by saying, well, if we were to reduce the types of fees that any organization would be eligible for, or have a flat thing, well, that's probably a little bit more straightforward and easy for both us and organizations to budget for. But I don't think we gain anything from there. It's like, well, just ask for more money, and then, we're waiving less fees. That probably turns out to a net negative for these organizations. But I just wanted to kind of point that out. It's like, yeah, you could ask for more, but we're just giving it to you on the back end.
And I think we've always been fine with the fee waivers, right? I don't think any of
Yeah.
us have ever really said no,
Yeah,
Right.
right? But
well,
I
one
did-
time.
Yeah, I was gonna
Oh, sorry.
say,
But-
Yeah, not it. And I think y'all probably, I mean, Chip had that bullet on there. I had, you know, concerns with that, and I think, again, not saying that there was, you know, ulterior motives with how that particular event was presented to the council and how it was processed, but what's to prevent somebody else that would have, you know, less than ideal intentions of trying to get around paying for fees
Which I
by
under- yeah.
masking it?
Which I understand.
How do
yeah.
we cover that?
I think ultimately, my perspective is we institute a license fee and we ask for the reports is where I think those two changes would be worthwhile.
To show that they are in fact making contributions, and by us waiving or minimizing the amount of fees they are exposed to is beneficial to,
So would we ask for the pre-reports
if they have them, yeah.
Well, they have to have them.
when they're coming up this year?
Well, for those, that's what I'm saying, the one-off where it's the first time they're having an event.
First time we're having it,
They're
yeah.
not, they might not have anything, they're a relatively new charitable organization.
Show us what you did last
What you-
year
yeah,
in
what you
order
can.
to predict what we're going to do this year.
Or even like a kind of an estimate of if it is their first time.
Does that make sense to everyone? It's just like, what happened last year? Why is this going to work the same way or as well as it did last year, this year?
Yeah.
And then we can give you the thumbs up.
do you feel like it's important that the monetary benefit that the event is having, like towards the public, or if they're donating to somebody, should be greater than the amount that we're waiving for the fee permit?
Not necessarily.
Like, I know
these are
some of
just
that with
for
the
everyone.
events, we're not gonna be able to, like with a free, like especially Oldsmar Friends of the Arts, that's hard to quantify, right? Because they don't charge for tickets. It's just open to the community, where other events might require tickets. Like,
Right.
is there, I don't know.
Well, like Mardi Gras requires tickets, right?
Does,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So is the Beer Fest.
Beer Fest required tickets.
Peter Pan doesn't.
Both,
Odd Run didn't, right? Or does it?
Right.
The Heroes
Run
Run,
did not.
they have fees.
Yeah. Oldsmar
The-
Days and Nights is,
But I
runs,
think,
you have to buy a tag for.
sure, but trying to quantify what's the monetary benefit, I mean, you really kind of get into the hay, right? You know what I mean? It's just like.
We all
They're
agree
hold-
on-
They're holding events in Oldsmar. They're supporting everyone. They're bringing in people from out of town. That's going to support the city on a global scale, is my point.
Chip, you may not have this, but how many events have we had where we don't waive fees? Any?
We do. Yeah, we actually recently we had one 2
Does BMX
weeks
fall
ago.
under
It
that?
was the art show that was we held at the hockey rink, actually. And actually, they've come back there planning on doing 3 more events in the spring over here on the City Hall lot. They just pay out the full rate because it is a for-profit
Yeah.
special event. For the most part, if it's a nonprofit, they will request a fee waiver. So
Right.
I don't know off the top of my head. We have so many events that come in that we kind of just separate.
BMX pay fees for their?
So what happens with
internationals?
BMX is that we have an agreement with BMX, and we receive all the
Oh, right,
parking
the
revenue, and then we also
proceeds, okay,
receive per rider fees based on the number of motos and so forth.
Gotcha.
So these are 501c3s, which we've always waived the fees for. I think if we put, like I said, if we put a blanket, $150, this is your license fee, and we want reports about your event, I think we're in good stead. Whatever anyone else would like to add to that, I'm comfortable with those two things.
Sure. Yeah, and like I said, my other concern of why I voted against one previously was kind of the proper representation of who the event organizer is, and I don't know how we can be presented with anything that proves it or disproves it, right? It is challenging, I think, in that regard. So I don't know how you can put that in there. I mean, that would be my preference, and it's kind of a one-off or low likelihood event of those things happening, but they could. I just don't know how.
It was because the beer fest was politically motivated, so.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Do you have any other suggestions, Val?
I
Anything?
don't, I'm pondering. I'm looking at some of these questions, because can you go to the next slide, please? I feel like there was a question that kind of addressed what you're talking about, Councilmember Knapp, that said something about
Oh, that's on this one right here,
Wasn't
the
there?
second.
applicant.
Yeah, I
must
mean,
be
so you
the
can put that
primary
on there, but then
event
how do we
host or-
know, how do we
you
know that?
enforce that?
Well,
Yeah.
How do you prove it or disprove it, right? It's like, I
Yeah.
mean,
Good
based on
question.
the points I've made previously and kind of beat to death was, this is what I believe to be the case.
Right.
Yeah,
And, that, again, I believe that to be kind of an outlier to the general
Right.
wave or slate of fee waiver requests we've received year over year.
I can agree to that, because the
Right.
list we got was all, I went to a lot of the events, and it was.
Well, and again, usually it is as advertised and how it's
Correct.
pasted up and down of who's doing it. You can easily tell whose event it is.
yeah, and I think we get into the minutia when we start. Like, what are we actually asking for,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
I would like some money coming back to the city. That's
Yeah.
all I'm asking for. And I'd like
Small
some.
amount. I
I'd like-
agree.
I'd like some
Something.
reports about what the event is and what impact
That it is
has.
in fact benefiting someone so that we feel good about having waived most, if not all of the fees, and then, and having that evidence to kind of support, it's like, this was a good reason to do so, and somebody benefited.
Even though we were teasing about it and like, about when you were like, hey, I don't really like this and you voted against it, we still have that opportunity. We can
Right.
still not like it and we can still vote against it, right?
Sure.
So
So, I
do we all
mean,
agree $150, $150 is a good starting fee?
that's fine with me.
I'd like the consensus for
Comfortable with
a
that.
future policy to be considered,
Okay. So
as
we
well
have-
as
And then the reports, we all agree?
I want the reports for sure.
So,
No,
yeah,
I
I like
yeah.
the financial, when I saw that, and I didn't see what you, Vice Mayor, the $150 fee, I agree with that, though. But I like the reports, because I like looking at that information.
That'll make it easier to make a decision when we're reviewing the application.
Chip, would you mind, sorry for asking you to jump around, would you mind going back to the table again, just do another,
one?
not what the cities, other cities, yeah. Just another once over to see if there was anything else that seemed reasonable.
Yeah, so my whole thing is, let's keep, you gotta pay for utilities, add the license fee, and I want the reports as Safety Harbor has them, is what I'm saying out loud.
Yeah, I definitely feel they need to still pay for the utilities, absolutely.
Yep,
Yep.
those are my suggestions.
I'm gonna just be upfront with you guys. My pet peeve over the years, I'm gonna just be blunt, is I can't stand it when there's a event and I see our city employees working and I know that our city's paying for it. I'm just being blunt with you guys. I'm just being out front. It bothers me. That's the only thing that bothers me.
Sure.
I just wish that that payroll would be covered by the event person who's running the event would pay for those fees. But I understand that we.
But they're not employed, yeah, they're
Right,
not employed by.
I know.
Right,
But that's my problem,
so the license fee offsets that amount a little,
a little.
right?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, like I said, it's more or less an additional, effectively charitable contribution we're making, but just in the reverse.
And I think I'm gonna.
We're not taking.
Right, and I think I'm gonna feel better, Councilmember Knapp, with the reports, because the reports will tell me, where the money's going and what their financial situation is, and that'll make me feel better about that situation with our employees working the events. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
'cause I
yeah.
mean, it is, some of them, as we saw there, it is, not small amounts that are being waived, but in the grand scheme of things, right, overall scope of the city budget, it is a relatively small amount of foregone
Yeah,
revenue.
well, I mean, unless you guys wanna increase the fee, but I mean, but that's what
No,
we
I
haven't,
think
we
that's
haven't
fair.
ever done it, so it's
Yeah,
gonna be
I
a
agree.
This
shock
is only
part of the
for,
system, right?
for these nonprofits, the standard fee structure should
And we
remain,
all have
right?
other jobs,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And we all have
absolutely.
other jobs, so is my title insurance job paying me to be sitting here right now? No. Is the city paying me to be sitting here right now? Yes. So there's always that difference, so it's just like, yeah, we have to have a city employee there. But, like I said, we charge it for every single event that's somewhat offsets. Literally, we've had zero, so now we're getting a little bit more, just to offset that a little bit.
Sure.
I think it's fair.
Yep.
Do you mind if I ask a question? I don't know if you're gonna have the answer to this or not, but just while I'm thinking about like offsetting costs and such, on not on the nonprofits, on the private events, on the fee schedule that we have, is the city profiting off of
undercharging?
those events? Are we undercharging? Are we barely breaking even? How are we financially on the events that we are charging
The
for?
ones that we charge for, we charge the full fees.
Okay.
So if
So
they have
it's the real
staffing
cost.
costs, we charge the staffing costs. If they use $150 worth of electricity, it's $150 worth of electricity. If-
Okay.
Right, but I think to kind of jump in on that is, I know we've been adjusting fee rates on other things more recently over the last year or two, and are some of the existing fees, like $40 an hour for EMT fire, are we in a good spot there or not? Doesn't look like.
It's a real question though, because
Changes, right?
Of-
It depends on the
over time.
employee.
Yeah,
And so if you have a long-term employee,
Yeah.
that's not gonna cut it for double overtime,
yeah.
right?
right?
So that may be worthwhile to revisit the rates for those that will
Good
be paying
point.
for it.
Good
Can
point.
I'll mention too that the fee structure that was just approved at a recent council meeting included an adjustment in Parks and Recreation's
Yeah.
overtime for events. We raised that fee that last time.
Do you know
I
how
know
much?
Fire just recent, they're going to be raising theirs, I believe, in the near future.
I can go back and look. I have the-
Okay.
I have the packet.
All right, anything else? We good?
We just want
Well,
consensus.
I did have some questions
ahead,
on the slides here. Okay, so our discussion on, do you guys agree with the bullet points here? They have to be a city-based or just a nonprofit in general, 501c3 in general? Are we okay with that? Because we do have a group, like for example, the Cabby Fest.
Cabby Fest is
You know, because
not
they're
based.
based out of St. Augustine, but they come here, they do it, they bring people to the hotels, and like, that's why
I'm
they ask
okay
for-
with that.
So
I'm
just
fine
a-
with non-city
non-
too.
Yeah, I
Any
mean,
501
with the intent of bringing people in,
People
there's
in. Coming here.
events that can travel and rotate around
Restaurants,
throughout the area.
hotels,
Okay.
they're bringing in bed
Yeah,
tax.
so no
Okay.
restrictions there.
Just say, yeah, you're not allowed to, like, no.
So the event open to the general public, must be open to the general public, I'm assuming from this bullet point, is that?
Yes.
Okay. We talked about the event being the primary event host organizer. We talked about post-event reports.
Definitely want reports.
Excuse me?
I said, we definitely want
Yeah, okay.
reports.
Yep.
And we, we talked about the fees there. Let me look at my screen. Talked about defined benefits. Okay, any other criteria from the bullet points that you would like to have considered in there that you've seen? Like not politically motivated. Is that something as a criteria that when you consider these, is that something where you say, look, we do not want to host politically motivated, give fee waivers to politically motivated events?
I don't think, have we ever had any, I don't remember ever having a political event.
I don't think we have, but I also think that would come to us in council and we'd be able to make our decision.
Yeah, well, the
So I don't know that-
Governor DeSantis came that one time, but that wasn't,
That wasn't a special
Yeah, that
event, that
wasn't
was
a-
an appearance.
it was
That's-
just an
and
appearance.
Everybody got a phone call early that morning and said,
Yeah.
put your suit on.
Don't tell anybody.
So, yeah, I don't know if that's relevant.
But Chip, I think if we didn't like it,
Right.
if it was politically motivated, none of us care, right? It's just like, okay, whatever. But if it was politically motivated, we could say no.
Right, you always have the ability to discuss it at the meeting and say, we're just not comfortable with this,
Yeah.
or we not.
Yeah.
But
And
again,
that's just the fee
now,
waiver.
now, let me,
right? But, because you could, you're still holding the event, you come to us for the fee
correct,
waiver. right?
correct, that's, I was just gonna say that same thing.
Right. So, I mean,
I don't know that we need that.
if we felt like waiving the fee because it was politically motivated, but we're not going to decide whether or not the event can be held, it's whether or not we're going
Correct.
to waive the fees.
If it meets our criteria,
Yeah.
from a
Then-
special event review
Then we have
standpoint,
to say, yeah.
because
yeah.
we don't discriminate against applications that come in, it's,
And not us, I mean, the city would have to say, yes, you can do it, right, as long as everything's met?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so,
Well, another one I think that was kind of in the big table of what we already kind of require and what's in the current format of the waiver request is we say that we may ask them to demonstrate how funds raised or how they would be dispersed, used to benefit residents of the city of Oldsmar. Granted, obviously, there could be other benefits, right? Use of impacts to businesses. Is that something we still want to keep to where it's somebody's coming in to raise funds, there's some charitable organization, and in theory, there could be some event that might not benefit anybody in the city of Oldsmar, but it's still benefiting some good. Is that something we want to exclude or not?
do you want to just?
That's not what's been going on, right? It's generally
You want to just add a bullet to what Safety Harbor has there and say, demonstrate how funds will be used to benefit residents, and so at least we can see?
Well, that's what I'm asking. It's like, do we want to, I guess at least ask the question, right? And then we could, that's how we would take into consideration of, well, if they say, well, it's going to benefit a whole bunch of, you know, some group or subclass that doesn't include any residents in the city of Oldsmar, but it's still good. It may raise money for something, and they want to do it here in Oldsmar because of being at the nice park.
I can go back to the Cabbie Fest example,
Yeah.
right? You know, they do that to raise money to support the adoption and health and wellness and whatever distribution of King Cavalier dogs.
Right.
What are they called? King Charles Cavalier, whatever, Cabbies.
So it's ultimately
Anyway, so
benefiting
they
animals,
benefit-
not residents of the
Right, but
city
then
of
they
Oldsmar,
bring
right?
people to the city and they stay at the hotels and then they eat in the restaurants. So that's
Yeah.
kind of their angle on, hey, we're benefiting in this regard, not
Sure.
necessarily.
Yeah, the conversation of direct benefit to citizens or residents of Oldsmar, like, it's always been a sticking point with me. You're here. The events
Yeah.
in our city, you are
There's some
benefiting our
benefit
city because there's
somehow.
something to do, and so
Yes.
the money is being spent within our city. You might not see a $20 bill in your mailbox,
Right.
but the restaurant did. They got sleep nights.
And the-
They got
and the
this, right. I mean,
Waitress got a tip.
right, and so it's just like, how do you even quantify?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, well, this is the direct benefit it had on the Oldsmar residents. It's like, well, how'd you even find that out? It's just like, oh, well, I talked to 20 people. It's like, well, who'd you talk to? Like, it just, like,
I think the fact that there's an event or somebody wants to hold an event
Something's
here
going on
is going
here.
to be a benefit. So
Right.
it's like, do we really need to have that criteria in there
Exactly.
explicitly?
It's like, how often are we at, like, Celebrate Oldsmar is what, in 2 weeks? Like, how often do you run into people? It's just like, oh, we drove over from Safety Harbor. We came down from West Chase. It's like, oh, we
Right.
came down from Tarpon.
Yep.
So that
It's
might
just
be
like,
something we
do
wanna
I-
cut out.
Right, is that?
Know it's there. We know it's
Exactly.
happening.
Yeah.
So is that a direct benefit to me because I'm a citizen of Oldsmar? Like, no, but you're here and you're spending your money and you're spending your time here, and that's awesome.
Sure. Cool.
All right. Any other questions, Chip?
Can we get
Oh,
more
we've been
pictures of
jumping
Chip in these?
Can you jump
this-
around a few more slides?
Yeah, can we get more pictures of Chip in this PowerPoint presentation?
Let me see.
Can we burn out the battery?
There he
on
is.
the clicker?
No, I love this. This is fantastic.
Oh, looks like Felicia's got some summary points or additional questions.
That's why Chip was standing here. I was writing down the evaluation criteria, just to make sure that we have it all right. So it'd have to be a nonprofit, doesn't matter where it's from.
Right?
It has to be open to the public.
Yes.
We're gonna charge a $150 license fee, plus they have to pay utilities. We're gonna have lots of reports, some financial reports and some after-action reports, right? Is
Yep.
that- And the same ones that Safety Harbor required.
Yes.
So I think I got it all.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
did I
sounds
miss
like it.
anything?
Yeah, we all agree, correct? Yes.
Right, okay. Well, thank you, and thank you, Chip, you did great.
Great job, Chip.
job,
Thanks,
Chip.
buddy. Great job. Excellent. All right, if that's it, anything else for the record? You want to speak, anybody else want to share any other information?
Nope, that's
All right, have a great evening. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you for all the slides.